I had originally done this video a bit different. I'm back in New York for a bit. I finished my contract in upstate and just here in the city. Going to be going on vacation in the next couple of weeks. I'll be gone from June for about 2 weeks in Mexico. I'm going to check how things are going over there. And I did this video. I wanted to do this video. I did this video a little bit different because I was talking about gold. And you have a lot of people pushing to buy gold. People are saying China's buying gold and they're selling US treasuries and they're dumping the dollar. And of course, none of that is happening. I always think of it this way. A lot of people look at the system and they think that all these countries, are against each other. And I remember whenever I start to think that way, I always remember what Jesus said. There was a period where the Pharisees said to Jesus, "You expel demons by means of Beelzebub, the ruler of the demons." And so Jesus' reply to them was, well, if I am expelling and performing all these miracles by means of Satan the devil, and he said, well, in essence, Satan is expelling Satan. And so his logical conclusion was, well, if that is the narrative that you're trying to push to the crowd, well, then Satan's kingdom would not be able to stand. It would naturally fall apart because it's divided. And so a lot of times when I look at the system of things and I start to think that all these different countries are divided and fighting each other, I keep in mind what Jesus had said. The whole earth is ruled by Satan's kingdom. That's why as Christians, we pray for God's kingdom. This is what Jesus said. Teach us then how to pray. You must first pray this way. Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Indicating that God's will is being done in earth, but it is not being done in heaven, but it is not being done on earth. And that's why we pray for God's kingdom to come down to earth, so that the kingly rule will take over the earth. Because as we know, even John said, we know that we belong to God, but the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one. And so when I see a lot of what is going on, I always have to keep that perspective in mind, that the whole world is ruled by one kingdom, and that is by the devil's system of things. This is why Jesus later on went on to say, after he had been resurrected, that the ruler of this world is coming for me and he has no hold on me, because he was going to be vindicated by remaining faithful even unto death. Now, a lot of people, of course, are talking about going out and buying gold. You gotta go buy gold. You're going to preserve your buying power, or go out and buy silver. And if you actually look at the premiums on these particular coins that you can get, again, the coins that you buy are coined by the government. Only the government can coin gold as a legal tender. A private company can coin gold, but it is illegal. It cannot be considered legal tender. So if you were to go out, let's just say we were to have some amazing collapse, and you were going to coin and use something that was coined privately, it would be illegal, of course, if you were to go out and try to use that. Now, George Gammon and many of these other people, I'm not picking on him for a reason. It's just because he did an experiment where he went out into a country that had hyperinflated currency. And he was like, we're going to travel the world of this particular region, and we're going to see if we can deal outside of the system. We're going to use gold, silver, Bitcoin, and maybe some other cryptocurrencies to see if we can travel and basically live without having to interact within the system of things, within fiat currency. And again, the people themselves, according to his experiment, they had no interest in gold. There was no market for him to be able to exchange his gold, even for the hyperinflated currency that he was trying to exchange it for. The people had no interest, to the point where he said that in that scenario that he would have had to take a 50% cut he would have to pay a premium to get into the inflated currency. This is a currency that has been hyperinflated. And even that currency was more valuable than the gold to the people. And of course, his conclusion was the reason that it was this way is because you needed to have an intact banking system. And I was like, well, the people do. They use the fiat currency that is issued by their bank. And of course, he's going to try this experiment in some place, I believe it's like Turkey. But he's going to have the same experiment, the same outcome. The reason being is because it's all that the people know. And number two, the people who are willing to do a transaction, to take gold off of your hands, to get the currency that you can go then and buy goods and services with, they're going to charge you a premium, which is what he had found. And if you actually were to go out and to buy gold and silver from all these dealers, all those dealers are backed by the government. The reason that they're able to sell coins is because the government allows them to. And so the coins that they sell are in essence stamped and issued by the US government here in the United States. And so they're doing the will of the government. And of course, for a fee, which is the premium that you pay. And shit, the premium on silver right now, it's like 20, 25, maybe even 30%, depending upon where you go. And so you have to pay that to get in. So you're already taking a loss. It's like your commission to purchase the asset, to purchase the silver or to purchase gold. And then if you were to try then to sell it back to them, let's just say they gave it to you at what the going market is minus spot. So you're going to take the L going in and you're going to take the L going out. And of course, all of this is under the guise of keeping and maintaining your purchasing power. And again, a lot of people who talk about gold and silver, they talk about how gold has run up by comparison to the stock market and by comparison to the dollar, and how at one point, gold was $35, now it's X amount of, now it's, what is it, 2,400, I believe. But what they never take into consideration is, one, the spot price to get out. They're going to charge you a fee to get out of the gold, which is going to be the spot price, or worse. And the other thing is capital gains tax. So even if you do make some money, what people often never talk about is the capital gains tax that is associated with selling the gold. Because the government will charge you for the transaction. They will charge you going in and they will charge you coming out. And you have to hope, now, this is now, when there's plenty of liquidity and you don't have to worry about getting out of gold. In the verge of a collapse, outside of even in a hyperinflationary standpoint, there will be little liquidity available for people who will want your gold and silver. The people who will be willing to take it will typically be people who are either wealthier, as for example, the money changers that George Gammon had to go to. Those were the people who were willing to do the transaction, and they set the rate, not you. So it doesn't matter that you sit there and you hold your little gold bar and you're like, well, wait a minute, no, gold is going for $2,400. And like, I don't care. You got anybody else willing to give you that money? No? Well, then you're limited to the supply and demand. And since there's very little demand for gold, then you're going to get whatever they're willing to give you. And so if that were to happen in the United States, for all these people that are telling you to go hold gold and silver, etc., you're going to meet the exact same problem. And so it's pointless. It's pointless holding on. It's pointless holding on to it. If we actually were to fall into that sort of environment and you were trying to escape the country, good luck. Because trying to cross the country, trying to cross the border, even by car, your car will be searched. I crossed the border going into Mexico, and they thoroughly searched my vehicle. They sit there and ask you all these questions. What do you have in the back? You have any valuables? If you're trying to cross by plane, you got to fill out a little paper asking, are you taking more than $10,000 worth of value from one country to the next? Because they all work together. And legally, realistically speaking, the government can take anything of real value if you were to try to leave. Let's say you were to go across the border with more than 10,000, 50,000 in cash. The government legally can seize it from you. So it's very difficult to escape with any sort of wealth, at least at that time. During that scenario that people are saying gold and silver is going to protect you from, which is a collapse. For most of the people that do have gold and silver. I mean, most of the people in Turkey, when Turkey went the route of gold and silver, most of those people were starving, and after they lost all their gold and all their silver, they were at the mercy right then of the fiat currency that was in the country, because there isn't this transaction going back and forth of now I'm working for gold coins instead of pieces of paper. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen because there isn't liquidity. There is not enough liquidity to go back to that way of life. And so a lot of people who are pushing this narrative are typically people who buy and sell gold. They buy it at a price, they've been holding on to it for so long, and they wait for these opportunities to dump it on the market. And so all these people who are telling you to go out there and buy gold, they're like, hey, check out the link in the description, buy gold from a reputable, and of course there's always some sort of a kickback that they get, or it's the company that they work for. And it's like, well, if gold is going to be that important, then why are you selling it? Why are you selling it if you're telling me that you need to be holding on to it, and here you are selling it? If that was the case, people would stay quiet. People would stay quiet. They wouldn't want everybody and their mother knowing about going out and buying gold, because all it's going to do is just going to raise the price as more people start to flood into the gold market. And then if the narrative is that you're buying gold, right, as the person who is promoting this, well, then you're going to be paying a higher premium. And the reality is just because they're sellers of gold, just like the buy my course people, just like the buy Bitcoin people, they're just trying to look for a greater fool so that they can offload their whatever it is that they're selling, whether it's courses, whether it's gold, whether it's silver, you name it. The most important thing that you can have are skills, because skills cannot be taken away from you. So if you're a skilled plumber, well, then you would pick up another trade, right? Like doing tile work or doing electrical or masonry, etc. Because the more skills you have, you can take those with you no matter where you go, and no one can sit there and say, are you a plumber? Are you a whatever? Are you a carpenter, etc.? Because nobody's going to care. No one's going to think that far ahead, because that's where the real value is. The real value is, what do you bring to the market? And so for people who are sitting here pushing this narrative about going out and buying gold and buying silver, it's not the case. The last thing I wanted to touch on is this narrative, why China is selling treasuries. Now, we're going through a liquidity crisis. And so their ability to get dollars to pay back their debt and to do transactions is limited, because the federal government, the Federal Reserve, is limiting the amount of dollars that are available. Yes, there may be a lot in the country, but not so much that is going across overseas. And this is why China has been selling, while they have been selling treasuries, the purpose of selling treasuries is to get into dollars, not to get out of dollars. China is not de-dollarizing. They're selling their treasuries because they need dollars. The same way, I'd sell a computer, I'd sell my car, right? Because it's denominated in dollars, but I need the physical dollars to do a transaction with for somebody else, unless someone is going to take the car or whatever it is that I'm trying to barter with. But more than likely what they want the physical cash. And so that's exactly what China is doing. China is selling their asset, which is the treasuries, and then they're getting into cash so that they can either pay back their debt or do transactions. In fact, it's been noted that, where does it say? There's a little tidbit here where it says Chinese institutions have issued bonds denominated in US dollars that are called Kung Fu bonds. 80% of China's foreign debt is denominated in US dollars, meaning when China goes out and buys debt, or they want to lend money out, they say you have to pay us back in dollars. So if the country was de-dollarizing, well, then they would be making debt in a different currency, whether that be a global currency, their own currency, which they wouldn't want to do because it would just make their goods more expensive, and they're trying to make their goods cheaper. So that's why they don't issue debt in their own currency. They'd rather have it in a foreign currency, for example, like the US. And because everybody needs the US dollar to do transactions globally, whenever they go out there and lend money to other countries or do projects, the debt that those people owe them, 80% of that is being returned to them in US dollars. So this is why China is moving from manufacturing in their own country, and now they're moving it to Mexico. They're moving into Mexico to bypass tariffs, the same way Canada built. They built. Oh my God, I forget the tree refiners. I forget what they're referred to as. Anyways, but instead of trying to move that lumber from Canada into the U.S. to avoid the tariff, they basically built the business in the United States, cut down the trees, manufacture them, and then the currency, the dollars, flow out. And that's exactly what China's doing, but they're building in Mexico to then sell to the United States. If they were de-dollarizing, they wouldn't be needing to do all of this. But they're doing everything in their power to try to get dollars. The concept of these countries de-dollarizing is a lie. And so it's just a narrative being pushed from what has been going on. Again, I always go back to what the Bible had said, what Jesus had said, that if Satan expels Satan, the kingdom cannot stand. And if all these countries were to do what people think that they were doing, the whole system would collapse. The entire system would collapse. And that isn't due to happen in the way that many people think that it is going to happen. Anyway, I'm going to leave this video here. It's already getting longer than I wanted. I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.